Go.
This one, you want to go out too? Okay, here you go. Outside. Everybody out. Everybody out. Bye bye. See you later. Okay. Okay. I'm free. Okay.
Mhm.
Uh, Limbs have no minimum size. Even a limb of a corpse smaller than an olive, or a limb of a carcass smaller than an olive, or a limb of a sheretz smaller than a lentil convey their tumor. There are 248 limbs in a person, 30 in the foot, 6 per toe, 10 in the ankle, 2 in the leg, 5 in the knee, 1 in the thigh, 3 in the hip, 11 ribs, 30 in the hand, 6 per finger, 2 in the forearm and 2 in the elbow, 1 in the upper arm, 1 in the upper arm, and 4 in the shoulder, for a subtotal of 101 on one side and 101 on the other side, plus 18 vertebrae in the spine, 9 in the head, 8 in the neck, 6 in the chest, 5 in the genitals. Each of these limbs conveys tumor, via touching, conveying, carrying, or ohel. When is this so? When it contains sufficient, right? Yeah. When is it so? When it conveys sufficient flesh to heal. But if the limb does not contain sufficient flesh to heal, it conveys tumor via touching or carrying, but not via ohel. These convey tumor through ohel: a corpse, an olive's volume of a corpse, an olive's volume of a netzel, ladle full of coarse powder, a spine and a skull, a limb severed from a corpse, and a limb severed from a living bottle that have sufficient flesh to heal. A quarter cup of bones, even if it is less than most of the frame or less than that of the numerical majority, most of the skeletal form or the numerical majority of the bones of a corpse, even if it comprises less than a quarter cup of bones, all of these convey tumor. How many bones are a numerical majority of the bones in the skeleton? 125. Okay.
Okay. Right. Mishnah base. So we just listed all of the things that are tame ohel that spread ohel tumor. And we carry out. Oh, we're continuing the list. Revius dam, a quarter log of blood. Revius dam tavusa, and also dam tavusa, which is the blood that seeps out of a person and gets mixed with living blood. In other words, it came out partially while the person was alive and partially after he died.
Uh,
Okay. So Kahati points out there's a difference between a quarter log of blood and a quarter log of dam tavusa. That a quarter log of blood that came out entirely after death is tamei min Torah. Shinemar. כל הנוגע במייס בנפש האדם, ודבר שאיזה הוא נפש של האדם שמטמא, הווי אמר, זה רביעס דם. So specifically, blood that came out of the person after he was dead is tamei d'oraisa. But if it's a mixture, then it's only d'rabanan. Okay. Mimeis echad. This is talking about from one corpse. Specifically, if all the revi'as came from one corpse. Okay. Rabbi Akiva omer mishnei meisim, but Rabbi Akiva says no. Even if it's two, so you got like an eighth plus an eighth from two different corpses. That is still matame, says Rabbi Akiva. The reason for the machlokes is explained in the Gemara because of a drasha on the pasuk Al kol nafshos meis lo yavo. So the Tanna Kama says yesh aim lemasoris mashma dafka im harvius dami dafka from one mace, and Rabbi Akiva says no. It says nefashos, and nefashos implies two. Anyway, dam katan sheyatza kulo. Now, what happens if you have a dead child whose blood does not come up to a full revius? So we saw before that the analogy that we're trying to make over here is when we were talking about a limb, we said that even like all those limbs that we mentioned, all those bones and things, we said that they're matame or hell, even if they're less than a kazayas, okay, because it's a whole limb. So Rabbi Akiva wants to come and say, if the entire blood of the katan has drained out, then that is also going to be matame ba'ohel, because it's analogous to a full aver. Okay. The chachamim revius. Now they say it has to be a revius. Why? Because you can't. The chachamim say you can't compare the two, because a limb is a whole limb, and that's undisputable. But you're never going to get every last drop of blood out of a body. There's always going to be some left behind. So therefore, you can never have a full aver kilu of blood. So we have to stick with the minimum measure of a revius. Kazais rima, beautiful analogy, a beautiful thing to have in your mind. You have a kazais volume of worms that have come out of a dead body's flesh. Ben chaya ben mesa, whether it's alive or dead. Rabbi Eliezer matame kibsaro. He says it's got the same din as the flesh from the dead body, because this is actually interesting, because we have a similar case in Shabbos, when we're talking about it's one of these really fun things when you're talking about the las, the kina. When Rabbi Eliezer says that one who kills a las is patur. Who says which? The one it's a machlokes again, Rabbi Eliezer and Chachamim about the louse, because because everyone holds that lice spontaneously generate. They don't have pre-avaribia. They don't reproduce normally. They just appear out of thin air, and therefore says Rabbi Eliezer. No, wait. Oh no, Rabbi Eliezer says that that you're chayav because it's natilas neshama, whereas the Chachamim say that it's mutar because there's no period of arivia. So they have different criteria. Now, once again, it's Rabbi Eliezer coming and talking about that the worms that come that are found in a dead body are spontaneously generated. And therefore, he says, because they came from the dead body, they have the same din as the dead body. Okay. The Chachamim matarim, and the Chachamim say no, it doesn't have the same din. Afer srufim. Now, what happens if you have people who were cremated? Rabbi Eliezer Omer shiro berova. It's tameh with a quarter log of ashes. The Chachamim matarin, the Chachamim say no. Once a mace has been burned, it's gone, and there's no more tumah at all. So there's no shear for tumah by ashes. Melot tarvad v'od afar kavaros. Now, if somebody took some grave dust from underneath the mace, obviously there's going to be a bit of sand mixed up in it. Not just like things that have oozed out of the body. This is it's kind of gross, these mishnayos, but we've got to learn them. Okay. So you'd have to have more than the tarvad is actually the minimum shear, but you need a little bit more to account for the sand that's going to be mixed in with it. Afa kavaras tame. Rabbi Shimon Matair. Rabbi Shimon says that there's no the reason for why he says it's tahor is explained in the Gemara. She'asu sofa ketchilaso matchilaso keshenikbar im yesh davar acher harayo lehirakev im hames kegon im nikbar betafrichim or ba'aron shel eitz also davar mevatlo. If there are other things that are going to be disintegrating with the body, that thing is going to be mevatel all of the dust, and there's no more din of rekev of the corpse dust, even. Okay. The halacha again does not follow Rabbi Shimon. In all cases here, the halacha is following the Chachamim. Melot tarvad rakav shegavalo b'mayim. Now, if one had a tarvad, that's that ladle thing, and it was of corpse goo, that was mixed up with water, eino chibur l'tumah. Then it's not. There's no chibur for tumah. The water does not join the pieces together to make them tameh.
Okay.
Let's not dwell.
Wait, since you're talking about worms, you heard about the airplane incident, did you not? You didn't.
What airplane incident?
I don't know which airline. Don't remember where it came from. Everyone was sitting in the seat. Everything was fine. Everything was good. No problems at all. All of a sudden,
the overhead bin
opened up, and out came all these maggots, right onto all the people who were sitting there. Maggots.
Disgusting.
Found out in inspection.
Oops.
Thankfully, they got everybody off the plane, I guess.
I lost you for about 30 seconds because I switched onto my VPN and you said something about the maggots that fell out.
And the maggots came out of the. There was a bag with a dead fish in it, and the maggots were in there, and it fell down on top of the people that was sitting right there. Can you imagine that? The whole thought of it now is just.
I think the Mishna is preferable. Thank you.
Now, every time you're going to go on a plane now, you're going to look up at the or at least take the inner seat.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so the following things are metame by touching and by carrying, but einan metamin ba'ohel. So the following things do not make to ohel tuma. Etzem kasora. Okay, so now a piece of bone. Now we said that if we saw in previous Mishnahs that if you had the just plain bones, you need a certain minimum shiur. What was the shiur of bone? Just to refresh ourselves, rova atzamos, a rova of bones,
right?
From rova binyan or rova minyan. Okay, from the specific minimum measure of the rova. So it's a quarter kav. Okay. Now, in between that measure, if you just got the minimum measure is a seora, just like a barley corn. Okay. Now that is matame by touching and by carrying, but there's no ohel. There's no din of an ohel, and consequently, the following points follow naturally. Eretz ha'amim and beis hapras. Right. The land of the nations is also only matame. It's matame only by carrying and so it's the actual land. Why? Because you're worried that there have been corpses ground up. They haven't looked after the mason, and therefore there's small pieces of mason around. So there's not going to be an ohel because you're not talking about a rova. You're only talking about a small piece. Similarly, the beis hapras, the grave that got plowed over.
Yeah.
What you're worried about is the small bones. It's not that we're concerned that there's a whole dead body somewhere. And again, a limb from a dead body or a limb cut off a living person that does not have enough flesh on it to survive, as if it were reattached. Or a spine or a skull that were lacking, that were missing a piece. How much is considered a lacking? 2 vertebrae. Even one is enough to remove it from the din of ohel and just into mago and masa. And what about a skull? The size of a drill. Enough that would be taken out of a living person and he would die. So what is Beis Shammai talking about with the makdech? Bekatan shel rofim. The small one that the doctors used, Divrei Rabbi Meir, the large one that was used in the temple. Now this appears to be a chumrah of Beis Hillel over Beis Shammai, doesn't it? It's a shiur before Beis Shammai. Interested. So it turns out that the shiur is very close between between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai, and this is the machlokes between Rabbi Meir and Chachamim is actually more of a machlokes. It is a parallel machlokes in the size of Beis Hillel, because Beis Hillel didn't give it a proper shiur. They just said the size that you would need to remove from a living person for it to be a mortal injury. Anyway, that's we'll leave it at that. Mishna Daled Hagolel v'Dofek. Okay, so now Golel and Dofek are pieces of a grave that are used to cover over. It's more in the style of catacombs that we've spoken about burial caves,
right?
And people used to put the bones into the wall and cover that over. So now the Golel was like a big stone that they would roll in front of the opening of the catacomb, and then the dofek is another rock that they would stick in place to hold the golel so it wouldn't roll away.
Okay.
So those two rocks are sitting there and sealing the grave. Metamin b'maga over ohel. Now these ones, metame if a person touches them, and they're also metame if a person is in the airspace above them, or in I suppose inside the catacomb. Look,
Right.
it's difficult to say inside the catacomb because then the mace itself would be metame. So you have to say that this is like out in more or less out in the open, and you've got and you've now got airspace above the golel.
So where the catacomb is against in the wall, and it's a little bit out of the catacomb, you're saying, correct?
Right. So it's a little bit out and above. So if a person went into that airspace above, but if somebody carried it, now in other words, Nabamasa would be if somebody lifted the weight, like let's say they had a lever that was sticking under the golel and they stood on the other side of the lever and moved it up. Now that would be considered picking it up.
Right.
So a person would not become tame from that. Okay, Rabbi Eliezer Omer metamin b'masa, but Rabbi Eliezer says also b'masa a person would become tame from it. Rabbi Yeshua Omer im yesh tachtehen afar kvaros, if there is corpse dust underneath the golel or the dofek, metamin b'masa, then also it will be metamin b'masa, because anytime that you move the golel, you'll also be moving the corpse dust, which is also metamin b'masa. But if not, then no. So what is the definition of the dofek? Hagolel nishan alav. The dofek is what the golel is resting on. Aval dofek dofkin tahor. But if you put another stone in order to hold the dofek in place, now this is a second, another level removed from the golel, that's tahor completely. Okay, and that's it for Ohalos today.
So we have in our burial places here, we have dirt on top of the mace. So that dirt was being conveying tumah from the ohel, correct?
Well, whatever's on top already is going to be tame because the mace is there, and the tumah needs to come out somehow. Now, what I have seen about the way that they bury people, at least in Beit Shemesh and Jerusalem, a lot of places where they're like really makpid on halacha, is that they put a layer, they leave a gap of a tefach above the mace, and then they put a bunch of stones on top of it.
I put some blocks on top of it.
They put those blocks. They used to use the sort of cinder blocks, but now I see they're just using like thin, maybe sort of polypach.
Oh, really? I didn't see that.
When they're lifting them, it's like they're really light, and they put them down, but it's enough to hold the weight of the whatever's on top of them, because that potach tefach, as we'll learn later in our Masechta, helps to confine the tumah, and when they make it, then they make a double layer of it. And that double layer prevents the tumah from going upwards.
I haven't seen that double layer. I've just seen usually one thing. Yeah.
Watch it. I mean, you should never have to go to a funeral again, but if you do, watch closely how they put the layers in, like in the Beit Shemesh cemetery or in Eretz Chaim.
Right.
They've got they put in 2 layers of stones or blocks, whatever. As far as I can guess, it's to confine the tumah. Okay. Elim.
We have 28:8.
Yep.
Concerning clothing of poor people, although they do not measure 3 finger breadths by 3 finger breadths, they can become tummy with midras tumah. Regarding a cloak that one began to treat, once a majority of the cloak is torn, the torn parts are no longer considered to be attached. Thick cloths and soft cloths are not subject to the law of 3 finger breadths by 3 finger breadths. A porter's cushion is susceptible to becoming tumah with midras tumah. A wine chamber is not subject to the tumah of a seat. The hairnet of an old woman is susceptible to becoming tumah with midras tumah. The skirt of a harlot that was fashioned like netting is not susceptible to tumah. If one makes a garment out of a fishing net, it is tahor, but if he made it out of the net's bottom, it is tameh. If Eliezer ben Yaakov says also, if he made a garment out of a fishing net and he doubled it, it's tameh. Concerning a hairnet, if one began to make it from its rim, it remains tahor until one finishes its bottom. If one began from the bottom, it remains tahor until one finishes its rim. Its front lid is tameh itself, and the strings are tame because they are considered attached to it. If a hairnet became torn, it cannot contain the majority of the hair. It is tahu. Okay.
Okay. Yud Ches Tes.
Okay. A bed of which half was stolen or half was lost, or which was divided by brothers or divided by partners, is tahu. If they put it back together, it is susceptible to tumah from that now on. The components of a bed contract tumah as a unit, and they can be purified as a unit. These are the words of Reb Eliezer, but the sages say they contract tumah only as an individual parts and can be purified only as individual parts. One who disassembles a bed in order to immerse it, and one who touches its ropes are tahu. At one point is the rope considered connected to the bed from when 3 bottom are woven into the bed. And one who touches the rope from the knot and inward is tameh. And if he touches the rope from the knot and outward, he is tahu. Regarding the strands of the knot, one who touches the part necessary for the knot is tameh. And how much of that strand is necessary for the knot? Rabbi Yehuda says 3 finger breadth. Regarding the rope that extends from the bed until 5 hand breadth, it is tahor. From 5 until 10 hand breadths, it's tameh. From 10 hand breadths beyond, it's tahor. And with this rope, they would tie the Pesach offering and to the beds and would lower the beds.
Okay.
And we have Mila.
Me'ila, yes, indeed.
Mila. Kosher Kedoshim that are slaughtered in the south of the courtyard are subject to Me'ila. If one slaughtered them in the south and received their blood in the north, or if he slaughtered them in the north and received their blood in the south, or if he slaughtered them by day and threw their blood on the altar by night, or if he slaughtered them at night and threw their blood on the altar at day, or if he slaughtered them with intent to consume the offering beyond the time or outside their place, they are subject to Me'ila. The viewers say the general rule: any meat that had a moment of permissibility on it for the Kohanim is not subject to Me'ila, and any meat that did not have a moment of permissibility for the Kohanim is subject to Me'ila. Which meat is it that had a moment of permissibility for the Kohanim? That which was left past its time, or that which became tamei, or that which went out of the courtyard. Which meat is it that did not have a moment of permissibility for the Kohanim? That which was slaughtered with intent to consume it beyond its time or outside its place, and that disqualified persons received it or through its blood. Regarding meat of Kadoshim that went out from the courtyard before the throwing of the blood on the altar, Reb Eliezer says it is subject to Me'ila, and one is not liable on its account for pigul, nosa, or tameh. Rabbi Akiva says it is not subject to Me'ila, and indeed one is liable on its account for pigul, nosa, or tameh. Rabbi Akiva said, why in the case of one who designated the katos offering and it was then lost, and he then designated another in its place, and afterwards the first one was found, and both are now standing? Is it not so that just as that blood exempts its meat from Mila, so too does the blood exempt the meat of the companion? Now, if the blood exempts the meat of the companion from Mila, it is logical that it should exempt its own meat from the Mila. And regarding sacrificial parts of Kedoshim column that went out of the courtyard before the throwing of the blood on the altar, Reb Eliezer says they are not subject to Me'ila, and one is not liable on their account for pigul, nosa, or tameh. Rabbi Akiva says they are subject to Me'ila, and one is liable on their account for pigul, nosa, or tameh.
Okay.
And we are at
Idios.
With regard to a bridal chair whose spindles were removed, Reb Shammai declared tameh, but Hillel declares it tahu. Reb Shammai says even the malbin of the chair is tameh. With regard to a chair that went affixed to a kneading trough, Reb Shammai declares it tameh, but Hillel declares it tahu. Reb Shammai says even the chair made originally to be in a kneading trough is susceptible to Thomas Midrash. These are the matters about which Beis Hillel has reversed themselves to henceforth rule in accordance with the view of Reb Shammai. If a woman came from overseas and she said, my husband died overseas, she may marry. My husband died overseas, she may take in Yibum. But Beis Hillel says we have not heard this tradition except in the case where she comes from the grain harvest. Beis Shammai said to them, it is the same whether she comes from the harvest, and it's the same whether she comes from the harvest of olives, and it's the same whether she comes from the overseas. The rabbi spoke in terms of the harvest only because they were of the incident as it happened. Subsequently, Beis Hillel reversed themselves to then force rule in accordance with Beit Shammai. Beit Shammai says she may be married and collect a ketubah, and Beit Hillel says she may be married, but she does not collect a ketubah. Beit Shammai said to them, if you have permitted the grave matter of erva, then you shall not then certainly permit the grave matter of money. Beit Hillel said to them, we find that the brothers do not enter the possession of the state on the basis of our testimony, Shammai said to them, but we can learn this ruling from a ketubah document, where he writes to her that if you marry another, you will take what is written to you. And Beis Hillel reversed themselves to henceforth rule in accordance with the opinion of Beit Shammai. One who is half slave and one who is a half a free man works one day for his master, one day for himself. These are the words of Beis Hillel. And Shammai said to Beis Hillel, you have provided a solution for his master, but for him himself, you have not provided a solution. He is not able to marry a slave woman, and he is not able to marry a free woman. Shall he remain idle? But this was not the world created for propagation. It is stated, he, God, did not create it in the world to be desolate, he formed it to be inhabited. Rather, for the benefit of society, before his master, and he must make him a completely free man, and the slave must write him a note for his half of value. Subsequently, Beis Hillel reversed themselves to the henceforth rule in accordance with the view of Beis Shammai.
Okay. Megillah.
Finally, it's difficult to talk with this after the dentist.
Ah.
All right. There's Zion. There is no difference between a Zav who experiences two issues and one who experiences three, other than bringing an offering. There is no difference between a confined mitzvah and a confirmed mitzvah, except letting the hair grow wild and mending the garments. There is no difference between the laws pertaining to one who was pronounced cleansed after having been confined and those pertaining to one who was pronounced cleansed after having been confirmed, except for saving and bringing birds. There is no difference between the laws pertaining to books of scripture and the pertaining to tefillin and mezuzah, except that books of scripture may be written in any language, but tefillin and mezuzahs may be written only in Assyrian script. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says that even books of scripture were not authorized to be written except in Greek. There is no difference between the Kohen Gadol appointed with the oil appointment and the one who downed additional vestments, except the bull offers for violation of any other precepts. There is no difference between a Kohen Gadol who is serving and a Kohen Gadol who is no longer serving, except the bull offering on Kippur and the 10th of the Ephah.
Okay. And the Mai.
Okay. If an Amma, this is a test, right? If a Hav Chaveh and an Amma Oretz inherits from their father who is an Amma Oretz, he can say to him, you take the wheat in this place and I take the wheat in that place, and you are the wine in this place and I the wine in that place. But he may not say to him, you take the wheat and I take the barley, you take the moist and I shall take the dry. A proselyte, if a proselyte and a non-Jew inherits from their father who is a non-Jew, he can say, you take the idols and I take the money. You take the wine and I take the produce. But after they become into the possession of the proselyte, it is forbidden. If one sold produce in Syria and said they are from Eretz Israel, he must tithe it. If they are tithe, he is believed because the amount that forbade is the amount that permitted. They are from this. They are from line. He must tithe. If they are tithe, he must be believed because the amount that forbade is the amount that permitted. And if it was known that he possessed a field in Syria, he must tithe.
Okay, and we are done.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, have a wonderful day and a good week.
Well, I'll speak to you tomorrow. Thank you.